when I got inspired, I did my little intro.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, we're going to try to get lost so that we could just find our way home, to inspire us to know that we can always find our way home.
We can find our way home.
No GPS, just you and me, a winding road and company. Let's get lost, let's get found, we'll talk it out while we drive around. So fortunately, we're gonna, because we just dropped kiddo off, we're gonna be in an area that neither of us are 100% familiar with. So that's gonna make it even more fun.
Nice.
And did you just see that VW that drove by? The orange one?
I did not. I was looking for campers.
You gonna buy one?
No. A camper, but not.
That tea is hot. What's your plan for a camper? What do you want to do with it?
Camp.
Would it be just I know a lot of people who get their campers, but they just save them for like vacations or weekend getaways. But then there are some people who are like, no, I want to end up in a lifestyle where I can live in the camper wherever I want.
No, we're too entrenched in our jobs and in our school district.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, maybe retirement includes something like that.
I love the idea. Like,
I have to show you this while we're at a stop.
Oh my gosh,
Look
that's
at,
for sale right
wait.
now?
Yeah. So hold on.
Oh, it's one of those ones that you could convert the inside.
Look at the inside.
Oh, the color scheme is gorgeous.
Isn't it beautiful?
Too. I love it.
Look at that.
Wow.
It like opens like French doors.
That's amazing.
It's super cute. It's 60 grand.
Yeah, that's
and the engine doesn't run.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're like, the engine needs a little work. I'm like, what? Okay.
You know that there are some people who have something like that and like sell it as like an Airbnb. You know, like like if you put a little tiny house next to that, and you said just hang out in this space, that would be really cool.
Yeah,
a nice converted VW.
I think that one's used honestly for like photos and stuff like that. So if like people want a little photo shoot or something with it. Yeah, the camper is, you know, mostly weekend trips. We might have an opportunity to take it out for longer periods of time. If you have it like a toy hauler, like a little trailer, then you take that out. It's really about just stabilizing it. That's about the only thing you have to do. And everything is, you can just kind of pack it up. All of your linens and sheet, you know, everything can be ready to go. So other than like your food and clothing and stuff, whatever you're going to be taking with you.
So do you remember blogs?
Blogs?
You remember when you used to go on the internet, not social media?
I still see blogs.
And learn about people's lives. There was this one woman, and I think her page was called Attic 24. And she had a camper, and she lived in the UK. Not all of her posts were about her camper, but it was very frequently her camper was featured, because if you saw this thing, it just made total sense. She would make the most colorful, like pillow covers, Afghans, curtains, and then she would have little pieces of art. And her little camper, I think she referred to it as a caravan, her little caravan. It was the cutest fucking thing I'd ever seen. And it made me actually want one. And it was one of those ones that was kind of the shorter silver stream. So it was all silver on the outside. And then how they would be all set up. And it looked like living in the UK with a camper was amazing, because you would go to all these shore towns on the coast and just set it up by the water.
Nice.
And just spend the night and then go home. How awesome is that, to be able to do something like that?
My dream camper I saw years ago. It was on Marketplace.
So I've never gone down
Some
here.
woman who, I think in Maryland, was selling it. And the camper's name was Rosie. And it was like a vintage camper. It was pink and white on the outside. And then on the inside, it had like gold kind of accents. And,
looks like I'm just going in a circle. I never went down this road, so I was like, we're going to try.
See what happens. So, but it was super cute inside. Same thing. Like she'd made her own little curtains and covers for all of the, like the seating and everything, the upholstery. And had this little tiny bathroom in it. It was like, I don't know, it was just perfect. But it just wasn't, you know, I didn't have a vehicle that could tow a camper at the time. And it just wasn't something that was practical. But it was only like $4,000, which is like, oh my God, blows my mind. I wish I could find it again. That was like what I really, really wanted. And still kind of what I'm looking for. My main thing is that, because otherwise we would just camp.
Yeah.
But my main thing is that I need a toilet.
Yeah.
For the middle of the night when I need to pee.
Yeah.
I am over getting
up,
going outside of my tent and finding a place to squat in the dark. You know, I'm 51 years old. At this point, I think I'm kind of done with that.
You used one of those silicone stand-up
I tried.
things, right? What was that like?
It was like peeing down your leg. Oh. That's a lot about what it was like.
There's got to be some that
I'm sure
well.
They work. I didn't practice. I should have practiced.
I know some trans men use them.
Yeah.
And some of them, I'm assuming and would hope that they found a way to make them effective.
I think it was a sheepy.
And work well. Sheepy. Great name. I love the idea.
You're in the dark.
And do you have to place it each time, or can you wear it?
No, you don't wear it.
You'd have to place it each
time. This was like something you hold against the outside of you, and then you pee, and it just funnels it out.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe there's a contraption now that you put in.
Like maybe it could fold up in the front, you know?
Yeah, I
and
don't
kind
know.
of hug your body. Because you know that they make these labia pads now?
No.
Yes. So for like light incontinence or a lot of discharge.
Sure.
Or anything, like some women might have issues with their underwear holding things in because, you know, underwear is like not made for women.
Isn't that funny?
They make these labia pads, and a lot of them are fabric rather than disposable.
Mm-hmm.
I hate when I end up knowing where I am, but we're just going to keep going. So,
dang it. I recognize this.
I know, and these are areas I never go to, so I just always like try to go. And isn't it funny how all roads end up leading to somewhere you've been before in a way, unless you go a lot further. So my idea sometimes is I will pick somebody up and be like, okay, first we're going to drive for an hour, and then we're going to drive for an hour.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then we'll take an hour to get home or something, however it works, unless we look at the map and we're like, oh, it's only 10 minutes away. So I wonder if there is a material that could be soft enough, but that has the same function as kind of wrapping your labia, right? But funnels your pee. We need some inventors out there for it. When I went to a fish show, we went to that big IT show that was up in Maine on an airfield base. My boyfriend at the time bought one of those toilets. It's like has a toilet seat.
Yeah.
And you basically just wrap a garbage bag around the top of it and you pee into a garbage bag. But I have to admit, I did not like that experience either.
Well,
there's something weird about peeing into a garbage bag, but it's gotta be because you're just not used to it. I mean, I grew up having a clevis at my house, you know, which is just a big, huge pit. It's the hearing how it sounds.
Yeah. The other option, if we'd rather just get like a pop-up.
Did you get one like this, that kind of camper?
Not that big.
I think they're kind of not. I want a cute one.
Yeah. That's called a fifth wheel.
Okay.
And it hooks on to, like, if you saw the front of it goes out further, it goes over the bed of a truck.
Oh, okay.
The front
yes,
of it
I did
does.
see that part.
Yeah.
This is an RV.
Yeah. That's
right.
like a bus.
Looks like we're in the right area to do some camper research. So you know that one of my, I'm sure you know, I had to have told you this because I didn't just make it up. Oh shit!
Jesus.
All right, I am not lying. That's a pretty color house. That dark teal, like blue. So on my bucket list, which I think this is the only thing I have in a bucket list.
It's like a cup right now.
I would love to do stand-up comedy at least once.
Oh, I know this one.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. So see that bump.
There's
that
big old
the
Airstream.
So that bump felt like it was like a Godsmack telling me to stop lying, but I wasn't lying. But my problem, like Ellen has always said to me, who by the way is going to be like a regular feature in the car with me.
Oh, okay.
I have decided.
Yes. I think she should.
Right, because talking to her is amazing, and she's so wise. Like you, it's always amazing, and Leslie and Sherry and like all my, you know, I have like these core female friends that I'm like, yeah, this always works and it's good. We've talked 1,000 times and said we should just record us while we're having conversations. So, anyways, so when Ellen said that I should do stand-up comedy, I was like, the problem is, I can't plan being funny. Like if I try to write it out and say something funny, it doesn't work. So it's like I need to have friends record me and tell me these were the funny bits. But then,
I think that's the hard part of
is
stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
You have to, you figure out what's funny, and you have to make it sound almost spontaneous every time.
Which is why I think Jerry Seinfeld, I'm telling you for the last time, it starts with like this big coffin filled with all his jokes.
Oh yeah.
And it's all on like, oh, see what happened? We just came in a big ass circle. I'm going to turn around actually and go back up there because I saw another way to go. Any single time you think of something, right? And the thing about jokes is they can be little. I used to carry a notebook around and I would fill it with jokes, but not one-liner jokes. They were like story jokes. Because I think if I ever did comedy, I would be a story joker. But I thought this is all leading to something, I promise. So in Carlisle, they have a comic stand-up night at Back Porch where like our band plays a lot. Yeah. And I haven't gone to one. And it would be really fun to just give it a go, you know, and their open mics often will, you know, say that stand-up people can go there. The other day, now it sounds so stupid to give this whole long introduction to what I'm about to say, but I felt
it's
like
a lot of buildup.
Failing. Oh shit, that's where I wanted to go. That's okay. We'll do it and we'll go another way.
Okay.
The joke that I thought I would try is like, okay, I'm just coming up here on the fly because I totally planned this, but I'm just coming up here. Thought I would give it a try because I always told my mom I can't plan jokes. You know, it just has to happen naturally. So. Wish me luck. and then be like, and I know it seems kind of crazy that I'd be up here because I'm not your standard stand-up comic. I have had sex. And I'm like, okay, that's a good start. That's
good.
And that's all I got. That's all I got so far. So I was like, all right, if I could just, you know, encapsulate some.
Oh, they don't have a stop.
Did I have a stop?
Yes, you did, but they did not.
Oh, see, this neighborhood's cute. Like, doesn't this look like it was like a little 50s?
Yeah, this is totally like a 50s, 60s neighborhood.
But it's so far. Well, it's close to the highway.
Yeah.
But it still seems far out that it's weird for this to, oh, see, that looks like those.
It reminds me of like Colonial Park.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that house looks like it would have one of those sunken living rooms from the 70s in it.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely, look at that one. Definitely some mid-century magic,
like architecture stuff. Yeah. Like they look very, like that white one there looked like California 70s.
This was like a typical house from like 1960. Not like super fancy mid-century modern kind of thing, but like my old house was built in 1960.
Yeah.
And the way that the roof, the architecture in the architecture of the house
was disconcerting. Absolute. Coming up over the rise and seeing the hill like that just drop off.
Yeah.
That I was kind of like, I felt like I was on a roller coaster.
It was weird when I first moved here, because I'm from Flatlands in Illinois. When I first moved here, it was driving around was like I was anxious because I couldn't see everywhere.
That is so funny because I came here from very mountainous, hilly Vermont. Well, a couple of years in between, like I was going to other places. Well, I think we're gonna go in another fucking loop again. God damn it, highways and roads, help me get lost. I always feel like this is even still kind of flat for us. Not this particular one we're driving on now. Oh my gosh, look at this.
Oh, cute.
Cute and tiny. Cute and tiny little U-shaped house, I guess.
Whoa.
No outlet. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. God, what are you going to do to get lost in this state? I'm trying so hard.
But I've talked to people who lived out, grew up here, and when they go into the Midwest, they don't like it because it's so flat. They feel like almost like vulnerable, like they're exposed.
I get that.
I'm like, okay.
I get that.
It can be boring.
Yeah.
To drive out there.
There's a stretch between Harrisburg and Pittsburgh that is just flat and straight, and then you hit the tunnels. That to me, it's one of the longest hours ever when you're driving, and it's not that long. It's an hour, maybe 2 hours. But I feel like this must be what it's like to drive in Nebraska. It's not, but it's not even like wide open fields. It is empty. It just seems like there is definitely nothing there. So I don't think I would make it in Nebraska. Don't they have? Aren't people known to actually get super sleepy driving in Nebraska and potentially, or not Nebraska? That's I'm not even probably saying the right states.
People in Nebraska are very sleepy.
Yeah. where it's just fields
Oh,
and
yeah.
fields and fields. Let's go this
Left,
way.
right turn. There you go.
That's me. I'm going right. I can't go left. Right over a guardrail. All right. So, how are you faring, by the way?
I'm okay. I am actually, the last couple of days I have not been as tuned in to the news, which has felt kind of good. But I have very much so because of what I do for a living. There's a certain amount of I need to be aware of what's happening in the world.
That's absolutely true. You do.
And
that's an added kind of. I never thought
it's like
of that.
a responsibility.
It is.
I have.
It is.
Occupation-wise, and then trying to just balance that with what is enough for me to know, or where should I be looking for information. And so on a personal level, I try to find ways to consume it that are a little lighter.
When you're looking to consume your news,
yeah,
what have you found are, because I'm assuming, especially because of your position, but also because of you as a person in life, that you need to look for unbiased, factually based, trusted resources?
Well, I don't necessarily have to. What I have to do is remember all of those things when I'm looking at any piece of information, in terms of, okay, I'm looking at this source, I know it leans this direction.
Right. And how do you determine that you know it does? Like, what's the factor that defines it as there's another VW van?
Well, for me, it's just reputation. Here's the thing, though, that when people will say, oh, NPR is liberal, it's left-leaning, it's liberal.
Yes.
So, okay, it depends on how you're categorizing that, though. What people assume is they are biased, or that they're writing
based on what they want to believe.
As opposed to, these are journalists that are very committed to a journalistic ethic. The topics they pick are more appealing to people on the left.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily, it might be more what they cover as opposed to how it's covered. Right? So they know who in the case of public media, they know who their members are.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
In the case of corporate media, when you're looking at, I don't know, the New York Times versus the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times knows that their subscribers lean left. The Wall Street Journal knows that their subscribers lean right. And that's typically more reflected in their editorials.
So if these organizations are sort of basing the topics that they choose on who their audience is, what do you think came first to make it that way?
Well,
did it start out, for instance, appealing to both with some fairness doctrine?
I think it still does. I think they still do. In terms of where real bias shows up, I think it's in the editorials. They're in the business of making money.
Yes.
And they know what their subscribers want. I mean, if you just look at the Washington Post right now, there's been tons of people who have unsubscribed from the Washington Post. So if Bezos
put out that,
if he wants it to be successful, he's got to find a new market or figure out a way to appease the market he has. So they have customers. This does not mean that the journalists who write for the Washington Post are biased. What it means is, what are we going to cover? Like the decisions he's made on an editorial place, right?
And when you say editorials, you mean like the thinkers who are writing opinion or op-ed pieces?
Well, there's that, yes.
Okay.
But then the editorial decisions that are made for the newspaper might have a different mission now.
Right.
So again, it's not necessarily that the information in the articles written by a journalist is incorrect or misinformation. However, it might mean, in terms of what gets taken out of those articles, what gets, what's emphasized and what makes it in the paper or what makes it online and where it's positioned might be more appealing to their base audience.
Do you think it's possible outside of science journals and shit, right? Because, I mean, but even then now you get people saying that even science is left-leaning, which is insane. But
there's a whole process
do you think
for
it
it not to be.
Yeah.
Or as little as possible.
Do you think there's any possibility that we could create some sort of resource or news source that can absolutely be unbiased? Is that even a possibility anymore?
No, because we're humans and we all carry our biases with us. I mean, we all know that.
So how do we escape
but we check ourselves. Like that's the thing about journalists, is that they're trained to check themselves
and cross-reference
as much as possible. Yes. And to not publish misinformation. I mean, they have an ethic that they subscribe to, and obviously they're humans and some may do worse than others or whatever, but at the same time, it's like a professional ethic that exists. I mean, people who are journalists, they're not in it for the money. It's a very hard life.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a passion, right? To me, it's like being a librarian. It's more part of my identity than it would be if I were doing a different kind of job. I see for journalists a very similar thing, that they're very committed. They're very passionate about what they do. They take a lot of pride in the work that they do. And they are trained to check themselves. It's not like it goes through peer review, right?
Yeah.
Like, scientific articles do, but still then it goes through an editor. And that's where things can, not necessarily facts can change, but what ends up in the article, what gets published, how it gets,
well, even certain words
where
have
it's
nuances
published
that can insert an opinion. I did see on Reddit, I saw somebody, they were asking, the question was something about American journalism. What do you think about American journalism and how we share news? And a lot of the comments, of course, were from Europeans or people just from out of the country, even Canadians. And they wrote that they will sometimes go and explore American news sites and they are horrified. And they're horrified because they have never seen news reporting. One person said, I moved to the United States, and when I would watch your nightly news, it would kind of make me sick because it was so bad. Like, not bad in the sense of bad reporting, but bad in so much bad news. And it was so negative, and they were kind of aghast that any opinion was included in any news reporting at all. And that threw them off. They were like, my anxiety level was huge when I would go and read and look at American reporting.
Well, the 24/7 news networks aren't necessary. Most of the time,
which started at 9/11,
but most of those aren't journalists. So
they're anchors.
They're not even anchors. They're like personalities, like TV personalities.
Yes.
Right. So many of them are not trained in journalism. They don't have degrees in journalism. They're personalities.
That never even occurred to me.
Yeah. The problem with us, and this is worldwide true.
We did it. I've never even heard of a Junction 392 or Route 392.
I think it went that way.
Yeah, but
keep going this way.
I don't know where we're going.
Right.
So
we've passed something we don't know, which is good.
I'm pleased.
It's a pretty barn.
I don't even know 262. At some point, I want a camera to record,
Yeah.
But I didn't want to expose where my friends live. So
right.
I was like, I got to come up with something for that. Maybe the first 10 minutes you don't see anything.
So we have the attention economy.
Yes. And
we compete for attention.
Yeah.
That's the scarcity. It's like a natural resource, right? And it's like voting with your dollars. You vote with your attention. You're willing, because people make money off of where we put our attention. So
is NPR for profit? It's not,
no,
right?
No,
I didn't think it was. But they still need to retain readership.
Yeah, I mean, they have members.
And their funding is probably based on their readership and membership.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So, for example, everybody thinks that the federal government gives PBS and NPR all their money, which they don't do. Yeah. They give them some money, but that's the idea of supporting. They are organizations. They are not .coms, they're .orgs. They are organizations, National Public Radio, Public Broadcasting Company. They're not meant to make a profit. Therefore, the idea is that they get some support from the government so that we have media that is not profit-based, which we would all assume is a good thing.
It is. I would assume.
Yeah. And
because at the end of the day, the person
who's
going to care about what's going in the paper is the person that's going to make the most money off whatever angle they put in there. So if they put in like some sort of feature that is a lie, but it gets the money, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah. So the other thing is we have to keep people's attention, right? We have to get their attention. We have to get their attention enough for them to click on something and to watch something, right? So they click or watch. Oh, look, it's TMI.
It's a little. Oh shit! Are we by Steelton now?
Yeah, or somewhere. Go that way.
You know, Microsoft is buying it. They just did.
Look at that house.
Wow. Should we drive by that house?
No, I can see it from here.
You want to go this way?
Yeah.
This morning on CBS This Morning, they did a special about why Microsoft is buying that place, and
it's for AI.
Yeah, and Google is trying to build their own new one as well, but they're trying to build a modular nuclear plant. But one of the scientists who worked for the government for 15 years, I don't know if she still has a job or not. She basically said it's kind of a fool's errand because you can't do it, and they're just gonna. So then it came out, well, they're gonna do little pieces.
Look at this little pizzeria.
That is adorable. That is adorable. All right, I'm sorry. You may continue.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
I was just saying, like, it because we have to vie for it, because attention is scarce, and all of these companies are competing for our attention. They're going to have fear is a great way to get attention.
Yes.
And to me, it's evolutionary, right?
Yeah.
When we hear something novel, or when we hear something that scares us, we want to know more about it because our survival is attached to that.
Especially when you put fear in touch with it.
Right.
Fear automatically triggers your survival instinct.
Right. Or it has to be very unique or novel, because we need to explore the things that are unique and novel, because they might kill us if we don't. Right. So is this good for me or is this bad for me? So
you're almost forced now when it's put in your face in the news, you're forced to make a choice or an opinion about it.
Right.
Whereas and with the 24-hour news cycle, social media, it's in your face all fucking day, and then you're panicking, and now all of a sudden you have to have strong opinions and you don't know which way to go, so you end up looking at the comments and how many likes and where should my opinion lie. Yeah. Whereas before, you got a newspaper and you read it in the morning,
right?
And you had nobody else's opinion was attached to what you were reading except your own.
You had the newspaper, and you had, in my lifetime, you had the morning news and the nightly news, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to realize people were making decisions about what you were going to see or hear, or what was going to show up in the newspaper and what wasn't. But
you talk about it with your friends later at work to get the paper.
But it was not emotional.
Yes.
Like there weren't people screaming at you, and it wasn't written with a lot of emotion.
And you actually discussed it with people right in front of you. Not pithy comments online from people
that you'll never meet.
Right.
So you can be a total asshole.
Or trolls, total trolls, where their
whole
job,
bots, and they don't even.
Or bots. Their whole job as trolls too is to get a rile out of you. So now your opinion is based on that interaction and not so much the news itself.
Well, and here's the thing. In the social media really likes the fact that you're engaged and you're angry, because you will stay online longer.
Yes.
So they can shove more things at you.
Part of doom scrolling is trying to find something to calm you down. But what happens too is we get triggered to end up being more upset.
I go to Instagram and I see ha 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 cute animal.
Yeah.
And then I see angry news, and then I see an ad. And then I see a cute animal, and then I see angry news, and then I see an ad.
Like,
so this is my algorithm. And there's a lot more suggestions now than there used to be about what you might be interested in, and all of that. But I've talked to communication classes, like speech classes and English classes, and one of the questions I ask them is where do they get their news, or how does their news come to them? Because in most cases now, it's pushed to us through places where we are, as opposed to us seeking it. And so. River.
And on the railroad tracks.
Yeah. And so in that case, all the students, the majority of the students, not every single one of them, of course, but the majority of the students get their information, their news from social media and word of mouth.
Well,
that's it. That's the main thing. I had one student say a newspaper, and I said, "Do you actually look at newspapers, like in print?" And he said, "Yes."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay." So when you have a bunch of students or people, I shouldn't just say students, when you have people only consuming the news online, how does this differ from that? Like, when I see New York Times, my mind goes, this is a newspaper. Like, I've seen it in print, I've looked at it, I've read it, But somebody who has never done that.
I feel like we should head toward back. I don't know how much time you have, but
I have plenty of time.
Oh, okay.
So whenever
I'm happy to get lost more.
Whenever we do that, though, it's like, I know that I'm looking at a newspaper online. Mm-hmm. Do other people know that that's what they're looking at? Or is it just another website? Is it just another thing that's pushing information at them? Do they differentiate between what it is?
I have a funny kind of example of where I wish I could ask that question. So, did I send to you my bio dad had sent me a blog that he checks every Saturday morning?
I don't think so. What is it?
Well, he used to have this thing where he would try to goad me into just basically fucking with my emotions, and he would try to goad me. Super. And he's a Trump supporter. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say he's MAGA. I've never seen him with a MAGA hat or anything, but he would always do it with like Obama and kind of be an ass to me, right? And I will never forget, and I said this to Ellen the other day, because I told her what I'm about to tell you. I said, I always have this one bit in my back pocket that really makes me feel like I said what I had to say, and I'm not going to be goaded by that anymore. Because every time he did it and I would get upset with him, he would be like, that's tape 32. Like, it's a fucking game to him. And he would refer to them as different tapes to play to get a rise out of me. And I'm not even around this guy that much. Like, I'm 47 years old, almost 48, and I have probably, if you took all the time I've had with him and put it cumulatively into one box, I've probably been around him less than a year.
What
out of my entire life?
Do that to their
it's obnoxious.
Biological child.
I do not know. But one day at dinner, this is the thing I have in my back pocket to kind of preface what I will show you and why I didn't listen to his tape, is we were all out to dinner with some friends. He had come to visit me and see his grandson, which is why I was back in touch with him, is because I was like, I want my son to have a relationship with you. He starts bitching about people on welfare. They're cheating the system, they're using it, my taxes shouldn't pay it, et cetera, et cetera. I finally exactly, interesting. So you know where this is going, right? I slapped my hand on the table because I was getting super pissed. And I said, bottom line, welfare raised your daughter when you wouldn't. I don't want to hear anything else about it. And it shut him up. And that's the only thing I have like that. I'm I'm satisfied with that. Like, if you don't see how you used the system, then I don't want to fucking hear it. You didn't want to be a dad. You would come visit me in my fucking foster homes and not take me home. You did not want to be a dad, and you used welfare to raise your daughter. Exactly. So fuck you with all this bullshit. Right. So the other day, he never writes to me. Like, never really, Since my son got cancer, he of course has reached out every now and then to say how he is. So he sends me a comic that was something about now instead of just philosophy majors not having jobs, so it turns out useful people don't either. So that comic made me think, is he upset about all the federal firings? Is this a way of saying, this is a problem and I don't agree with it? So I just say, that's funny, whatever. Then he sends me another one, I don't know what it is. And then he says, every Saturday morning I catch up on my blog site. And I don't know if he meant his blog site, but I don't think it's his. I should double check because he's in IT and it could be, but I don't think it's his. So I click on this and it's called something like Powerline. Okay. Or Power, can't quite remember.
White Power?
No, I certainly fucking hope not. But the articles in it, I was like, oh no, these are definitely still but reading what they had behind that site was fucking terrifying. And they were all opinion pieces written as if they are news. Right. And one of them, this is the best example I can give you. One of them said, the correlation between leftism and mental illness, especially among women. And then you read the article and it shows that women have increased depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
And then it's so on the side,
why?
It has a little graph. Exactly. Exactly. Like, I don't even have to fucking say, like, exactly. So I'm fuck you guys. I'm just like so pissed. So this graph, right? It's one of those ones with a line in the middle, and all blue on the right of that line is like depression, anxiety, you know, how much it increases among women. And then on the right, you know what was on the right or the left side?
What?
J.K. Rowling -1. Who's like a TERF now, right?
Oh my God.
So I'm just like...
So they all love J.K. Rowling.
So they all love J.K. Rowling now. And I just...
Fuck her.
I'm like, tell me that you didn't live in a toxic masculine environment with narcissists, emotional abuse, physical abuse, where you're a fucking sissy if you cry without telling me. Tell me that you aren't manipulating and abusing women to not confront their feelings and get treatment without telling me you're not a fucking asshole.
Right.
And I was just...
He reads this regularly to reinforce his horrible, horrible opinions and feelings.
Fucking unbelievable. And I just like, and I was explaining this to Phil, like he said, he's like, yeah, he's trying to get a rise out of you. And I was like, and he's like, you know, that's why, you know, with the politics or whatever, I can't remember what Phil was saying, but he was thinking of it more as he wants to get a rise out of you politically. And my response was, he's really getting a rise out of me as a daughter.
Yeah.
Because who would fucking take his time to make sure, because of his politics, like his politics is more important than my feelings.
See how hysterical you're getting?
Yeah.
Like, they don't, when they're winning, they look at it as you're just a sore loser. And you're getting hysterical about things.
Well, it's just like the abusive men in our lives, right?
Exactly.
I'm going to talk to you real calmly about infuriating things and keep telling you you're wrong, or I'm going to convince you my shoes are tied when they're clearly not even on my feet, and I'm going to keep doing it until you lose your shit because you love and respect me, and you are trying to help me make sense out of what's happening, and I'm just refusing to listen because I want you to look like a lunatic at the end of the day and tell you that you have rage issues and you need
power over you.
It's fucking infuriating.
It is.
Ugh.
It is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating when I read something once, and I'm going to mess up how I say it, but it is not an academic exercise to argue with somebody about their rights. And they're, you know, like, to you it may be an academic exercise. To me, it's about my autonomy. It's about my well-being, my safety, so when I get emotional about it or frustrated about it, and you go, oh, look, see, you can't handle. And it's like, no, because for you, it's just like, oh, it's just a fun thing to talk about.
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking impact you.
No. You're
not suffering as a result. As a matter of fact, you're winning. You think that you're doing better.
Yeah.
As a result of these decisions.
It's a bully mentality.
Exactly.
The bully mentality has gotten national. Yeah. It's gone national. Like,
oh yeah.
And now, oh God. And it's crazy because it's turning into seeing the kid that was beaten up at home become a bully.
Yeah.
And we're just creating more and more bullies with that same process.
Yeah.
It's fucking wild. When I talk to,
but except for these guys, I don't think they were bullied. I think they were, on an emotional level, they were neglected.
They were neglected. Absolutely.
100%.
And this is them trying to have a voice.
Exactly. They do not know how their emotional intelligence is fucking negative 80.
Absolutely.
Like, it's non-existent.
It is.
And that's why, Musk is like, empathy is a problem.
Oh my God.
In the Dear Colleague letter from the Department of Ed to the schools.
Yeah.
One of the things that was mentioned I don't know if it was in the Dear Colleague letter or in the FAQ for the Dear Colleague letter, but it talks about social emotional learning, SEL programs. I'm like, I don't understand how social emotional learning
is a bad thing.
Problem.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't get it. And there was that woman.
I think it's because it calls them out. I think because it calls them out.
It was that woman who wrote that thing about how some children don't deserve her child's empathy.
Yes, I remember reading that.
And it's like that same line of thinking. It's all this like Moms for Liberty stuff, maybe dressed up in like new people, right? New words, new organization titles, whatever it is. And we're all struggling right now. I don't know how Sherry's doing, but we're all struggling right now in terms of like, what do we do?
Yeah.
Like I have an anti-racism guide.
Yeah. Sherry and I didn't even talk about how this is all affecting school.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's, it's going to be wrapped up in court cases because there's certain things that the Department of Ed cannot dictate to schools and like withhold funding because of X. Because the Department of Ed does give some money to schools, but they are mainly funded by their states and their school districts.
Oh, I need a gas station. Ha! I got 40 miles. I can do.
No. So Department of Ed is, everybody thinks, I don't know why, but they think the Department of Ed funds their schools. And they do contribute some funds.
Yeah.
But what's the issue is they probably spend more money in red states, in poorer school districts, than anywhere else.
And isn't that a fucking irony?
Yeah.
And then I see all these comments too when they're talking about defunding the DOE or even just stopping funding it entirely, or cutting it off, firing it, whatever you want to call it. The comments are like, well, our educational system is in the hole. And I'm like, yeah, this will certainly help.
Well, like,
we should be putting more money into our Department of Education, not less.
Right. Well, and the reason your school is not doing well wherever you live, whatever your experience is, because the other thing that I really love is how people have become experts on things they've never freaking talked
never
about
even
before.
Considered or thought about.
I've had conversations with family members who will argue with me about the Department of Education, which I've never heard them talk about before, ever.
And they're arguing with you who's in education.
Well, yeah.
Chickens.
And I'm like, how is it that you know more than I do on this topic all of a sudden? You don't. And so it's kind of this, like, they've gotten wherever they get their information from, and they're parroting that back to me. And I'm saying, no.
There's more to nuance. Like, there's more nuance to all these things.
Yes.
That people, like, they're just grabbing these great sound bites or headlines.
Well, and they want you to think, like, oh, isn't this great? Isn't this efficient? Isn't this, we're cutting government, like, and the thing is, at first I was like, of course everybody wants the government to be more efficient and to be more, like, to spend the money wisely. Of course we all want that. Is there fat to cut? Yes, probably. That is not really the goal. That's all they're saying that's what they're doing. But what they're doing is they're dismantling so they can privatize it. That's all they're doing. Are we going to need a weather service? Yes. We've all been contributing to one.
People forget that the weather on your app, on your phone, that comes automatically.
Why do I need NOAA?
Yeah.
I got an app on my phone.
Yeah,
But yeah.
Oh, and you know what? I have to admit, I hate laughing at them, but it's so hard because many that are representing them, and it may not be those people in particular. What you don't know what you don't know. The problem is so many of them are acting like they do, spreading misinformation, and then calling you stupid when you're trying to tell them that this is the right thing.
Instead of being curious.
Yes.
And going,
curiosity is dying.
I had another family member, and it shocked the crap out of me when it happened in the same conversation about the DOE, said to me, I'm not really sure what they do. And I was like, I almost fell out of my chair because they admitted that they don't know what they do.
Yes.
And it was like, well, I'm not going to have an opinion on this because I don't really know what they do.
The greatest
Whereas the other person in the room was like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Won't the states just take care of that? I'm like, okay, first of all, when it's a civil right that every child deserves to have accommodations based on a disability or through 504s or IEPs, through the IDEA Act, all of these things, it shouldn't matter. And that's the thing, if a child has an IEP, they could move to another state, to any school district, and that goes with them. It is a federal document, and they are protected by the accommodations that have been determined that are appropriate for whatever it is that they need. So it shouldn't matter if a child lives in Alabama or California. They should still get the accommodations. They should still have the ability to get the support they need to be successful. And all of those supports are based on research that's been done, that's shown that this, like this is an appropriate thing, and blah, 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 blah. So they're not protected in that case. So if your child is an IEP and the school isn't following it, you can file complaint on a federal level due to that. When you don't have that protection, and it's like, oh, the state will take care of it. Will it? Yeah. Will Alabama take care of it? Will California take care of it?
They don't even, like Alabama, for instance, or Mississippi, they don't even have the money to go through and follow those whole processes.
And what they're saying is, this is the type of thing that should not be at the mercy of who's in charge in their state, or who's in charge in their school district. It is a civil liberty. It's a civil right. And that's why it should be a national thing. And so, I don't know.
So one of the things you were saying
where
earlier,
we should have pride in our country.
I think the greatest sign of intelligence is asking questions.
Being curious.
And when you don't know, being curious. Yeah, being curious. Always, because being curious is asking questions. It's even more succinct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're losing it. Nobody wants to ask questions because they think they're stupid if
they all ask. Think they're no. They all think they know.
Or they'll look stupid if they ask. And it's like, that is not how the world works here,
Right.
Like, nobody is expected to know everything. And you can't know what you don't know. But to act like you know what you don't know is dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus, you don't get behind the wheel of a car or like a semi and think you're just going to figure it out if you've never driven before.
Right. Exactly.
I'm not about to go, get into the cockpit of a plane just because I know how to drive my Nissan.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
I'm also not going to show up at a government agency and tell them that they don't know what the fuck they're doing when they've spent their entire lives, professional lives, in the CIA or the FBI or, whatever it is.
All of a sudden you know better than, I mean, Jesus, just looking at the comparison between Hegseth and the last Secretary of Defense, like, it's terrifying. It's scary.
Well, most of the people who've been put in those leadership positions do not have very good qualifications.
No.
They would not get hired in those agencies by any of the people running them.
I gotta say, I was very shocked that Kash Patel told FBI agents to not listen to Musk's order. That was surprising to me. But there's gotta be like,
the way I see it is there's a pissing contest.
Yeah.
Kind of going on. The egos
get too many egos in the same room. Yeah, and that's the other problem because...
And he's like, I'm in charge here. This guy's not in charge here.
What are people who don't have curiosity?
Right.
What are they, like, going by the biggest? Which direction do you think is more likely to have a gas station? What's your gut say?
Left. I don't know why, but left feels...
Actually, if this is 74, I think north will take us up toward Mount Holly.
Okay.
I'm going to go north.
Okay.
No, I like your feeling of left, so if I'm wrong, then I say it, but it's on the record. I should have listened to Kathy.
I like that I say left and you say a direction. You're like north. I'm like, I don't. Okay.
I was reading the signs.
I have no idea where we are, so.
Which is awesome. Like, I used to love just driving and riding around. I just always enjoyed it,
Trip.
For some reason, going on a regular road trip though, where you have to be there by a certain time, or it's not the same.
We were just talking about this morning because I went online. I was looking at campers and stuff, and we were talking about how just that idea of just getting in and going.
Yeah.
And just we got a week.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go?
I love that.
And you just go, and then
Yeah.
My dad's actually getting really good at that. They've taken a lot of really long road trips. They stay at hotels and stuff along the way.
So I obviously
$3 a dozen.
I was doing so well. I was doing so well cutting back on my social media at the start of the year. I put an hour and a half limit on my phone. Some days I didn't look at all. But then it's not a professional obligation for me.
Yeah.
But it feels like an activist obligation to me, where I'm like, if I am not paying attention, I'm not helping.
Yeah.
And I want to help, but it is overwhelming and it's stressful because I'm like, I feel like I have to be like a soldier in the combat disinformation army.
Yeah.
And I'm but it feels so helpless with all these bots and the social media.
Yeah.
And I wanted to look up and gather how many other social media platforms are there out there and who is owning them.
I've eaten at that pizza place.
Oh, is it good?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look, gas.
We came down this way because we were kayaking or hiking.
How many out there are owned by billionaires?
Yeah.
And how many are owned by altruistic people?
Mm-hmm.
There was one that was called like community something.
I
was on it for a little
yeah.
bit, and then they didn't have the money to keep going.
Something collective conscience or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that seemed hopeful. All right,
I have to pee too.
Sweet. I'm gonna hit pause, and I'm gonna spend money on gas at this little private owned. Look, it's a privately owned little place. I actually wouldn't mind a snack either.
Okay. Well, come inside.